Hello everyone, Burb here. Gemini Cup registration has just begun, so for me, it's time to start thinking about the Cancer Cup. I've gone over this many times, but the reason why I do these so early is because I personally adhere to my own anti-frustration plan. First step is, on registration day, that is my line in the sand. If I have passable Umas, I'm going to let them run and see how they do. The reason being is when I can sort of count the number of runs that I have left on my hand, I get frustrated when those runs fail, and that's a lot of added stress that I don't personally like. So instead, I use that time to build a good foundation for the next champions meeting. Again, that's my personal plan. Doesn't have to be yours, but that's what I adhere to. If you don't have 3 passable Umas, I do have an emergency guide available. It's in the top right corner. You can build those Umas in a day or so. All you have to do is either hit Mile S or a bunch of skills, and you'll be fine. Today, we're going over the Cancer Cup overview. This overview video is meant to give you a feeling of how this Champions meeting is going to go, get you started in parent building and the like. Start building your early aces too. We're going to go over the track. We're going to go over stat requirements. I will justify those stats, and we'll give you some parent inherits to get you started on parent building, of course, and a deck building suggestion, and finally some observations that I've had in my early testing. The actual role guides are going to contain a deep dive onto skills, why they work and when they work, so we don't overload everybody in this first video. Those will be coming out in the coming day or the coming week, so do not worry, they will be out fairly quickly. That will be, again, the skills, cards, and characters, and we have been doing an example build, and that has been helpful for a lot of people, so I think I will continue doing those example builds in those specific role guides. So, without further ado, let's talk about CM15. As some groundwork to get things out of the way, this is the Hanshin 2200 meter track. This is the Takarazuka Keenan. It's a right-handed medium track. And for the first time, I believe, in Track Blazer, this is a cloudy, good summer. So it's not firm sunny, it's a cloudy and good track, which means firm course menace is not on the list. And instead, we have right-handed summer runner, wet conditions, Hanshin race course, non-standard distance, and cloudy days as all of our greens. So it's a little bit different than before. For the track itself, it is a 2-lap track, so we will split it up between the 2 laps. In the early race, immediately out of the gate, we have a downhill, which means basically straight descent has a 50-50 shot of choosing this downhill because there's 2 downhills, and of that you have like a 1 in 5, so it's like maybe a 1 in 10 of being a groundwork proc. It's the equivalent of a groundwork. It is an acceleration skill, and another 1 in 5 that you get shrewd step timing if you're a pace chaser. So it's basically like a 1 in 10 to high roll with that, but it does have greater upside on if it decides to choose the right point in the spurt itself. It's a little bit of a gamble, to be honest, but after that, this downhill extends over 10 seconds, which is very important for after school stroll. After school stroll is an end closer recovery that chooses a point on the first instance of a downhill after 10 seconds. Because this downhill is long enough, which it wouldn't be if it was the 2000 meter, it procs at this point rather than at the 777 mark, which means that XOguri doesn't have a 96% guaranteed chance of proccing our ultimate. It's only a 75% chance. So we could be saved at that point. Otherwise, after that, there is a major uphill. Technically, this is in the position keep for non-frontrunner roles, but power is still going to be important because a good frontrunner will not cause you to PDM just because you have power here. There is a corner there, so there is the possibility of kidnapping, and these corners go and extend till the end of the position keep. So corner skills technically are the final guarantee, or quote-unquote, home free, basically, position PDM breakers at that point. We have a big straight in the mid race. The final corner is a little bit early for Uma squared, so they don't. XOguri also doesn't have Uma squared as a proc, as well as the 777 mark is speed carryover plus excel leak for XOguri, and we'll talk about what her advantage is. There is also a downhill at the spurt, which means downhill mode will extend into the spurt, and the spurt itself at 733 meters is a corner, so things like angling and scheming. It's also final corner after, which means Dober will work, Ryan will work. You got your corner inherits are generally what is very good. This is not a straightaway spurt map. This is a Dober map. Okay. The final corner is, personally speaking, I think this is a little bit too late for accelerations that are worth it. So your Red Maru alts are a little bit tough to buy itself, and the final spurt itself is 350 meters long on that final straight. It is a moderately sized one, so your dueling will happen here, and it has a decent amount of time. but it's not necessarily as big as the Tokyo tracks that we have been running. So it's a little bit closer to the Nakayama than it is these Tokyo tracks. This final straight also has the same 0.2 or the same 2x uphill at the end. That is basically a big power check. You will see your Umas, if they do not have enough power, you will see them slow down significantly at the very end, and it's going to look like they stamina die, but they will not be stamina dying. They just won't have enough power to get up this uphill efficiently. For stats, we have speed threshold, which means it doesn't really matter because you should be maxing speed anyways. And then we get to talk about the stamina. We have on Hanshin this massive downhill in the late race. And what this means is that basically, because this downhill is not taken into account in the spurt calculation, we are not talking about survival. We basically, as long as we spurt, we survive. So the Uma is basically going to overcompensate for the amount of stamina it thinks it needs. And as long as you do believe that you have enough, you will survive it, because if you get into downhill mode at all, which is very likely, you will be saving stamina at that point. That's basically why we care about spurt rate on Hanshin in general. And so if you go and do empirically, and you can do the calculator, it's the same way, but it does not take into account the downhill, 750 stamina, 550 guts will give you a 95% spurt rate roughly. That's basically order of confidence level. And the reason is that the start of the race, so that downhill itself, still conserves stamina if you decide to get into downhill mode, which is completely based on your wit stat as well as just random RNG. But you can't take that really into account because it's not guaranteed, although it is likely that it does save you some stamina. If you are looking due to the length of the track, a gold recovery is worth 200 stamina, a white recovery is worth 70 stamina, and of course, because there is this massive downhill in the late race, the only stamina debuffs that actually do anything are mid-race debuffs, because if you get debuffed here, you've already spurted, and then the downhill mode most likely will save you through the debuff itself. Murmur is minus 160 stamina itself. So basically, if you add 100 stamina to this, you get 100% base spurt rate. That downhill just becomes debuff protection at that point. If you're a front runner, you may want another 50 for spot struggle. Any extra stamina that you have really is honestly used quite well in a duel. So this extra 100 stamina, you probably shouldn't gamble it, but if you don't hit exactly 850, it's not the absolute end of the world. If you're wondering how guts affects this, basically every 200 guts after 550 gives you another 50 stamina, 40 stamina, 30 stamina, etc., etc. There's diminishing returns on guts, so technically 1200 guts would probably give you another 200 to 250 stamina bonus at that point. So, if you do a guts maxing build, you can probably lower your stamina by 200 or so. For power, you do have those two massive uphills as power checks, so power is quite important, but wit is also incredibly important on Hanshin due to it basically being translated directly into late race speed. If you get into downhill mode and you continuously get into downhill mode, you will be just faster than everyone else that is not in downhill mode, so that's why it is so important to grab wit as well. So my recommendation is to aim for a balance of power and wit as per usual, especially on Hanshin. I think 850, 550 is reasonable for stamina requirements. If you don't hit these stats exactly, like I said, try to get your stamina up there. And then at that point, I'd say power is slightly more important than wit until you reach about 900, and then try to pump your wit at that point. Again, try to max your speed best you can. These are recommended stats. These are stats to aim for. Try to get as close as possible to them. All right, the elephant in the room. Christmas Oguri has Festive Miracle on 777 proc. 777 is a guaranteed proc, assuming that she passes 3 wit checks. To pass 3 wit checks, if you pass 3 wit checks, it happens about 76% of the time. She can whiff on one of those if she has 1200. So 391 percenters equals a 76%. There is no Uma squared this time. There's no after school stroll. There is no non-gambling way for her to get a backup recovery this time. So it is a pure 3 out of 4 chance that she will just get 6.1 lengths in front of everyone, which is a massive, massive advantage. This basically means at this point that we need a 0.4 excel to start thinking that we have a chance to fight against her. The only other thing that you can do is basically be further back in the pack. Whoever runs the Christmas Oguri, it's going to be easier to play Christmas Oguri in the pace chaser position, but she is ultimately slower in the late race. So the end Guri is going to be more powerful, but also much more difficult to build and much more finicky because you do not have the pace chaser recoveries to basically save you, as well as the aptitude. So this is what we're fighting against as non-Christmas Oguri players. We are fighting against 6.1 lengths and is a very, very powerful Christmas Oguri map. But for front runners, you are getting angling and scheming on your front runner. After that, it's sort of pick and choose. You have your late race excels or late race velocity skills, which are basically Bark Roll of Blessings as the primary, as well as Lights of Vaudeville is also quite good. And then at that point, you grab your mid-race 0.15s with Kiss for Courage, as well as V Bourbon. Basically, any of those four in the grandparent slots are good. You probably need to run or borrow a Seiyun Sky Parent to make your front runner have at least the 0.2. For pace chasers, you have Hopes and Dreams as your primary acceleration, as per usual recently. You generally lean on skills like No Stopping Me in order to hit your 0.4 excel at that point. Otherwise, you do have Bark Roll Blessings, the same thing. Dota Alt is technically a gamble. It's quite difficult to pass somebody at the right time, but it is your best excel option, which is a little bit sad. But we do have Tripulse available to us because it's 2nd through 5th. And then after that, you have your sort of downside your downsides 0.45s or 0.25 inherits, which are your Lights of Vaudeville and your Satono Diamond, your Measure Arden, which nukes your stamina a little bit. And then we will have Camping Dober, which is a 0.15, but it does guarantee, if you're in position, that it will speed carry over. So that 0.15 is extended in duration on the inherit, which means it's quite good as well. For gamblers, we are in Let's Pump Some Iron, and so we're in Dober Ryan Land. We're in Pump Some Iron, as well as Moving Past and Beyond are our primaries. You probably want both of these, to be honest. If you're going to pick one, you pick the Dober alt. And then after that, we have Rudolph and Oguri, the typical late race. We're going to pass people, we're going to hit our 0.25, and then go from there. And then we have the same inherits as the other roles, basically, except we also kind of have we have Narita Bryan as well, because we should be able to late proc a pass just the tiniest bit. The inherits that I don't think are very efficient. The big ones are in the middle, but obviously this is not a mile or a sprint track. So the second half final corner skills like Taiki Shuttle and Budding Blossom, as well as Trace and Cheer, those ones that we've been using in this mile track are not to be used in this track because they proc way too late and those excels are not going to translate to anything. The final corner excels I also don't think are efficient. We'll go over that, but Red Maru as well as Pasa Fantasy, stuff like that, I think is just procs way too late to really get stuff. And there's things like even Mesuro McQueen Ultimate that there's arguments that as an inherit, you don't get enough value of it because it is eaten partially by the Excel zone, that you are better off grabbing just other stuff in the list over grabbing McQueen Ultimate. It's not the worst thing in the world, and if you hit enough Excel, you do get at least partial of the inherit. But the reason why I don't believe these final corner skills, including Redshift, are efficient is because, yes, if you look at it without anything else in a vacuum, it does give you 1.86 lengths, which is above the going rate for Excels that you are picking. It's like roughly 1 length is where the borderline is, where it's worth. But when you put a point to Excel, like let's say Dober Alt or Angling and Scheming, all of a sudden you're at 0.94, which makes it relatively comparable to basically any of the velocity skills in the game. Stuff like, Shadow Break at maximum gives you 0.7 in the late race, so it's only slightly better. And you're running a Marzensky, which nukes your affinity for other white skill proc chance, as well as your chance at actually getting medium S at that point. Once you actually put 0.4, which is stuff like a No Stopping Me or a Nimble Navigator plus a Dober or Dober and Ryan, stuff like that, you go all the way down to 0.32, and the ultimate basically becomes moot at that point. 0.32 Excel is actually less than an Anchors Away Gold Chip Inherit, which is an inherit that you really should never take because it has a target speed increase of 0.05 in the mid-race. So really, if you get your 0.4, you don't need this because you're already almost at max speed, and it's basically effective duration is so low because you reach that top speed within just a second or so. And you're fighting against Christmas Oguri. If you're not hitting 0.4 Excel at a relatively quick timing, you aren't beating the Christmas Oguri that's hitting the 0.3 plus speed carryover plus all that, plus a Dober alt probably at that point. you're not beating this unless you hit that 0.4, which is the reason why I think that redshift should probably not be taken, in my opinion. So technically they work. Don't take final corner excels, in my opinion. They're just not efficient. As for decks, I'm going to grab a drink of water real quick. For decks themselves, don't look at the specific cards. That'll be based on the rule that you choose, but I think we're pretty much in speed, power, wit will be the most consistent build. If not, what I would say is speed, Rico. But speed, power, wit, I think we're back to this because I don't think the guts build is sort of worth the squeeze. So just 2-2-2 is good, basically based on the stat gross of the Uma that you're building, is whether or not you need more speed or more wit or more power. There is an option to replace one of the power cards. They technically are a free slot, but one of the power cards probably can be replaced with Rico if you want more stamina guts and a little more comfort. If your sparks are not built around stamina, we're most likely running stamina and power sparks here. And then, of course, you can also just do Super Creek if you have her and you're a player that has just like the big three. Super Creek does work. She is comfy. She's not as efficient as running two power cards, but remember, she's a 10% race bonus card with like 15% training effectiveness. When she's not on stamina, you basically get some like whatever she's at anyways, and if you get one good summer tap with stamina, you normally will just hit the 850 requirement, but there is also a very high chance that you overstam for this map by running a stamina card. Otherwise, there will be a speed wit Rico deck that comes out of the framework. Basically, you have stamina sparks, you have Rico, and then using the additional card slot to pump your wit to 1200 or to pump your speed to 1200 and get some additional power. That strategy I think will work quite a lot, and these Rico decks will have sort of a lot more guts than average, and that's the power in it. You can, if you want to, try to run triple speed if you do have another 10% race bonus speed card on your account. The guts build is possible, and this is sort of the thesis of this deck building section, is that I personally don't think you necessarily need to guts build this one. It does have value. However, this straight that we're on is 350 meters. The point of the guts build is that your increased guts makes your dueling better. So the dueling has less of a chance to happen, or it has less of a duration that it can happen than on these previous Tokyo tracks. So basically, guts has value, but you need to be beating XOguri cap. And the way you do that is through skills. And if you look at the cards and the skills on these cards, you have skills in the free-to-play ones, like Aurora have none. You have Bijan, who has corner excel and PTO, so you're getting white PTO. And then after that, it gets rather light in terms of actual skills themselves. Most of the good skills you're going to find are on speed cards, on power cards, and are on wit cards. So you're lacking in the gold skill department. You could even run like Muteki as a borrow, and you get 5 different skills that sort of help you in positions. And the guts build just doesn't have any of those. And the way you're going to beat Oguri Cap is you're pushing up to Oguri Cap as a further back position and hitting the same excel that she does, and then you're just faster, which requires mid-race skills, or you're just faster in the late race, which requires late race skills. And by getting more gold skills by running speed, power, wit, you are effectively closing that gap. And so, yes, the guts matters. If you duel and just general speed increase, it will give you value. But again, you're gambling basically a 1 in 3 that you have a good run, and you're not getting the gold skills from the other ones, which really closes the gap. A big part about this is that the Narita Trop Road card doesn't have Firm Course Menace to increase your speed this time, so it's just tough getting the skills, to be honest. Some general observations that I found in this Champions meeting is that XOguri is very strong. She is beatable, but this is by far the toughest XOguri map that we've had to date. The proc is near perfect. The only thing that's good about this is that it's literally a 3 out of 4 chance rather than a near guaranteed proc, which was on the Champions meeting 13, I believe. So again, you need to hit your 0.4 in order to beat her. Fronts and ends are still very strong with the level of mid-race speed that they have. If the XOguri is pace chaser, that is sort of your saving grace, is that your front runner and your end closer have a lot of mid-race to go and fight against them. And she also has to use 300 skill points for her recoveries, which means that if she's not going just pure guts build, she basically gets 0 value from that outside of her ultimate. And you can use that 300 skill points to get an additional gold mid-race skill or late-race skill out of it as well. Otherwise, the next observation is that wit and power, this is sort of the balanced thing I was talking about. That last 2x hill is a very large killer, and you're going to see that if you don't have enough power, that's basically translating into late race speed at the very end of it. But your wit is going to translate into late race speed for the rest of the time as well. And it's honestly about a 1-to-1, basically, between the two and what you need. And that's why you sort of rule of squares it, where 2 times 2 is 4, but 1 times 3 is 3. Try to get your power and wit relatively similar, and I think you will find great success with both of them. There's a lot of downhill mode gambling. At the end of the day, this is a very high RNG track, meaning the Hanshin tracks in general are, because the late race is just so much downhill. This downhill here, if you get into downhill mode, you can literally downhill mode, increase speed, turns into speed carryover. That's how ridiculous that this downhill actually becomes. And finally, my personal suggestion is, as you're building your parents, get your parents, like in your parent building stages, to get more stamina parents, not just because this map has very good use of stamina parents, because you can just run speed, power, wit, but also because in Grand Live, we're going to need stamina parents, because we're going to be stuck in speed, wit, light hello land. And the best thing to do with that, with running that on those mediums, is those stamina sparks. Power sparks are good for shorter tracks. Stamina sparks are like king on Grand Live for those longer tracks, because you really don't want to run multiple stamina cards if a singular stamina card. If anything, you're a late surge and you're running a singular power card, if anything. But it's really tough to run cards that are not speed and wit and light hello, because that speed cap is increased by so much. So the stamina parents that you build for this champions meeting have much greater effect later on for you, and it makes it so you don't have to go back in to make a new track, or track blazer, sorry, when Grand Live happens, which I know people are getting burned out with this scenario. This scenario does not leave for parent building in particular. Your affinity is just so high in this one. So my suggestion, build your parents as you're building your aces in this last CM that is actually able to build the stamina parents. It will go, this is probably the most important thing of this video. It's like, this will go and give you and pay you dividends in the next scenario, right? So again, here's my suggestion. Stop building and min-maxing. We've said you can start building your parents, and a good way to do that is to start building an ace, pretend it's an ace run for like a Dober or a Ryan or a Saiyan Sky. All the characters in the parents section that I talked about are good options to start with, because the failed runs of those aces, before they become passable, end up becoming parents for the rest of your Umas of the same style. So they're both meta because they can fight against Christmas Oguri, so they kind of satisfy number 2 and number 4 at the same time. If you're running Christmas Oguri and you plan on running it, just build a passable Christmas Oguri, build the fun character, and then start building your parents, and then you basically go back 3-4, 3-4, 3-4, 3-4. That is the anti-frustration plan, is saying, hey, what do you enjoy in the game? You enjoy building your Oshi. You enjoy seeing your account progress. You can build the meta Uma, make it passable, occasionally make it better as it goes on. That may give you short-term success, but honestly, I think it's more fun to build your Oshi, and it's more fun to build characters that further your account. So we've gone through the overview. Up next, I don't know which one I'm going to be doing first, but we will have our rule guide. And then when the CM is over, I do like to do a debrief itself. So like I said, we're getting into the skills in those front runner, pace chaser, late surger, and closer guides, right? So hope you've enjoyed watching this CM overview. I think it will be a okay CM. It'll be the frustration of Christmas Oguri cap. But other than that, honestly, there's a lot of things that can work on this track. I think fronts and ends have an advantage, but otherwise, let's start building and see how things work. Now, last thing to do, I have to thank my members. I appreciate them a lot. Appreciate you all just for watching. These memberships are never required, and a lot of people have just gotten it because of the recent CM stream for the Derby. But those in the board tier, I do shout out in the overview video. So thank you all, but thank you especially to Kiku Z, IRL, Immobility, Mr. Merritt, Crest of Gautier, Lucifel, Oguri Cap Eats a Burger, Peter Van San, Oscar Van Bruce, Mishya, Sage, CDO Gren, Etep Pete, Flipper Z, Suez, Vega Vex, Legato, Rainigan, Misk Sloan, Angora Ruputra, JJ, Sosoj, and Sorcerer. So thank you all. Thank you all for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. Let's go and make CM15 enjoyable. All right. Take care, everyone. Good luck. Burb out.